Well, thank you so much, MT, for that wonderful welcome. Thank you, Tammy. And thank you. Good morning, all of you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's very exciting to be here with you. We're going to do this in two parts this morning. The first part, I'm going to take you through this book, which was approximately 10 years in incubation and 4 years in the making. And I'll take you through some of the highlights in the book, both visually and from a text point of view. And after we've done that, then we're going to get deeply into some of the career tasks and tools that I'd like to share with you as you go on your journey toward continued, and I say continued deliberately, continued success. I want to congratulate you for being here this morning. I want to congratulate you for being in college, and I'm sure you are all going to get your degrees. And I want to congratulate you for making your way through this exciting, crazy sometimes, but always engaging world, and being here this morning to really continue to contribute to you, to contribute to yourself. That's so important. And so I say that we're here to talk about your continued success. So, ready to hear more about how to slay? And I know that probably all of you in this room already know you know how to slay. So, How to Slay came out this year, and it includes incredible photographs by some of the top fashion photographers in the world, literally, and some of those you may not have heard of, but they're very important too. And one of the reasons I want to share the book with you is because you're all at LIM, and it's important for you to continually be educated about things that are in your wheelhouse, which this may be for some of you, and things that are not in your wheelhouse. As Tammy mentioned, it's so important to continually grow. And how do you grow? A lot of times you're in your comfort zone, but a lot of times you're out of your comfort zone. I expect, because you're at a school which emphasizes fashion, that this will be in everyone's wheelhouse. So you do know how to slay. And how to slay is a phrase that started with the community, LBGT and a Q community, and in the African American community, in meaning something to do with how you put yourself together, how you present yourself to the world. And it was a remark of approbation and excitement, like, girl, you are slaying. Guy, you are slaying, right? And not to leave out our guys. You know how to slay. And then how to slay has also broadened its meaning to include all manner of successes, right? So people who are slaying in their careers, people who are slaying as a partner, husband or wife, in your relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, people who are slaying in their spirituality. The term can be applied to all areas of your life. Photographers and images in How to Slay. As I mentioned, they're some of the top photographers. Anthony Barboza is a photographer who really did some of his best work in the 70s and 80s. But Barboza is working today, still shooting, and when I saw the photographs, his like trove of images that he had, I mean, you could do a whole book just with his work. He is incredible. Hosea Johnson, Itasia Jordan, these are all African American photographers. Itasia shot the cover of How to Slay. There are no photos in How to Slay that were specially made for How to Slay. It was a curation. I and my team went through close to 1,000 images to find the 200 or so that ended up in the book. And Itasia, who's based in Brooklyn, I urge you to look her up. She has an incredible eye. Patrick Demarchalier, some of you know who he is. Patrick Demarchelier is one of the top photographers in the world. He is also one of the top, probably 5 fashion photographers in the world. He's Anglo, he's not African American, he's Anglo-French. And Bruce Weber, also a top photographer. He shot a lot of the ads for Abercrombie & Fitch, Ralph Lauren. You should definitely be familiar with his work. Gilles Ben-Simon, Gilles was my boss at Elle, when I worked at Elle. And Gilles set the creative direction for Elle when it came into America. Any fans of Elle in here? Readers of Elle? Yeah? Okay. When Elle came into America, so you probably know it's French, and when it came to America, Gilles, who is French too, he came over with it, and he set the tone for Elle, along with Régis Pagniez, who was the editorial director and editor-in-chief for French Elle, for Elle's, which are now all over the world. And he's one of the top fashion photographers in the world. Annie Leibovitz, she's most famous for doing the Vanity Fair covers now. Some people would say she is the top fashion and celebrity photographer in the world. Interesting and wonderful that she's a woman, where, as you probably know, and you can tell from this list, men dominate. Marc Baptiste, fantastic photographer, top photographer who's done many travel and fashion, both ads and editorials. Ellen von Unwerth. So everyone recognizes this cover? You recognize the How to Slay cover? Great, no, I'm kidding. The Vogue cover with Beyoncé, which got a lot of attention, right? So one of the things, as many of you in the room know, and for those of you who don't, this was a historic cover because it was the first time in Vogue's, I think it's 128 years, give or take a couple years if I'm off, forgive me. But in its close to 128 years that Vogue used a black photographer to shoot the cover, which is pretty remarkable, right? Given, at least I think it is very remarkable. The photographer, Tyler Mitchell, he talked about how one of the earmarks of his work, and he's a young man in his 20s, and one of the earmarks of Tyler's work is the gaze. He really focuses on what is the gaze when people look into the camera. And he honed this. What attracted Beyoncé, what attracted Anna Wintour, according to what they have said about his work, is it was a work that he developed, a point of view that he developed from photographing in the African American community. And so this idea of the gaze, which I found to be very attractive to me as well when I was looking for a cover for How to Slay, which Itasia Jordan also clearly, right, captured in her work in this photograph. And the model here, her name is Gay MacDonald. So here are some of the highlights from How to Slay. We'll continue with leopard print. In How to Slay, I show leopard print from a photograph that's over 50 years old. And leopard print is a print which, to me, really embodies some of the contributions from the African community. When you think about leopard print, you think about a real classic of fashion, no? Right? You think about a real classic of fashion. And it's something which started, it always, in the African community, communities in Kenya, in South Africa, in Zambia, these are a lot of communities which use leopard print for hundreds of years and continue to use it today. And it was a covering, and it became something that always had a very important symbolic role in the community. Leopard print was associated with kings and queens, with leaders, and it had very symbolic significance. And it's interesting, I thought this was a really good idea, a really good example of how leopard print continues to be very powerful, and animal prints generally continue to be very powerful in the fashion community, in style, in pop culture. When I was putting this together, I it was around the exact time that the shows were going on in Milan. And Cardi B, does anyone remember the photos from her in Europe? Cardi B was wearing a whole like animal print business going on, right? And the glasses, you remember the glasses? She was wearing animal print glasses. But Nicki did it before her. Just saying. What you find in Black style is that music is very much tooth and tail with Black style throughout history. So when you look at history, if you go back, far back in American history, and keep coming forward to today, you'll notice that music played a very important role in Black style and the evolution. Anyone know who this is? Yep, yeah. So Josephine Baker, who became the toast of Paris in the 1920s, 30s, 40s. She was American, and she was very influential both in Europe and in America, even though she had to go abroad because of barriers of race. She had to go abroad to find her fame and her success. And in Paris, you know, the banana skirt has become iconic, made iconic by Josephine Baker. She was a force. I mean, name any celebrity today, from Taylor Swift to Beyoncé to Rihanna, and she was on that level. And so therefore, when we see celebrities today doing all kinds of brand extensions, right? Josephine was doing that way back then in the 30s, 40s, 20s. One of the things, she would have clothing with her name on it. She'd have accessories with her name on it. And one of the things I was surprised to find that she had with her name on it was a cream, and the cream, because she was so influential and everyone wanted to be Josephine, the cream was a cream to darken your skin. So I thought that was really interesting. And it just indicates the influence that she had. And to me, the underlying, even more powerful story is the influence, the intermingling that we all have. I take from you, you take from me, and we can be a more creative people. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday was an incredible singer in the 30s and 40s too. And it was said that Billie Holiday, has anyone ever seen a picture or familiar with Billie Holiday? So most of the photos that you see of Billie, there was a movie made about her, there have been documentaries made about her. She always had, you'll always see her with a flower in her hair. And legend has it that the reason she had that flower, she started wearing this flower, which became very trendy back in those days. And the reason she had the flower is she was pressing her hair. And of course, in those days, it was a hot comb, even though the chemicals can burn you too, but she was pressing her hair with a hot comb and she was burnt. And so being the innovator that she is, to cover that, she said, oh goodness, let me put a flower on. So she started wearing the flower and it became very influential. In the 50s in particular, men started favoring these fabulous baggy suits. So I know hip hop, I know 2 Chainz, I know all these guys through the last few decades, from Diddy to Heavy D, think that they were the first ones wearing baggy clothes, but they weren't. These guys were wearing, in the 40s and 50s, really baggy trousers and baggy jackets, and the look was called the zoot suit. Now the zoot suit was very popular, and on the West Coast, it was globally popular. And on the West Coast, there were actually a group of men, young men, who favored zoot suits, and they were in the Hispanic American community. And they were known by these wide lapelled, baggy pants that they wore, very similar to what Cab Calloway is wearing. In France, there was also a group of people who favored these suits, and they were called the Zazoos. And this whole trend was a huge trend worldwide. And then to the 60s, we saw the influence, again, from the African American community of the Black Panthers. I tend to think the berets may have come from the Beat generation. Anyone studied the Beat generation authors or music? So there's a whole group of writers who were extremely influential on American culture. And some of them wore berets, and they, were very French too. They were American, but they felt like very French. They were influenced by French. Black Panthers, what came to really symbolize the Black Panther's look was the beret and the black leather jacket. And these guys, there were women too, but it started with young males. They started as a social group who wanted to empower and help right some of the wrongs that they were seeing in the Black community from a social point of view, provide lunches, provide good education. They were fighting for good schools. And then, as some of you know, Angela Davis, one of the prominent females working with the Black Panthers also became quite militant because the times called for that militancy, because there wasn't much progress with equality in the community. But from a fashion point of view, and as you see, they're all wearing their hair natural, as did the women. So from a fashion point of view, they really became extremely influential. And what's also interesting, and probably of interest to you too, is to note how does fashion connect with social activism, right? And we're in a moment where that's a very relevant question, fashion and social activism. And that was really what the 60s, minis, high boots, the women, really what it signified. Maya Angelou, the great American writer, poet, activist, in the 60s, while on one side we saw a lot of this look of coming from the Black Panthers, of leather jackets and berets, at the same time, paralleling that, we were seeing an embrace of African prints, looks that were directly from the homeland of places like Kenya, Nigeria, Liberia. A lot of Americans went to Liberia, particularly African Americans, though not solely. And Maya Angelou, I wanted to depict here that embrace, which so many women and men were doing, embracing prints that were directly influenced by the African culture. We know dashikis, right, were very popular in the 60s. The afro, we talked about, is just another example of that. In the 70s, the influences, the Black pride, the blossoming of Afrocentric style was so powerful that it continued into the 70s, even as other types of trends were happening. And Pam Grier, isn't she gorgeous? I mean, Pam Grier was one of the biggest stars of the 70s, and she starred in a whole bunch of movies that were very influential for the time in the 70s, and then were so powerful that they continued to be influential. And here she's wearing that natural look, the big gold hoop earrings. These are Bantu knots, named after the Bantu tribe. Diana Ross, who is one of the all-time big influencers. Diana Ross starred, this photo is taken from Mahogany. Anyone heard of that film? Yes. I urge all of you to see it. Why? It's history for you. It's fashion history, but it's also a great background for you to have, whether you're in advertising, merchandising, retail. And it's a great visual history for you to have in your life. Here's Viola Davis showing some of the influence on the red carpet where she went natural. Halle Berry. How many people know who Halle Berry is? Okay, good. I don't want to get nervous. So this is a famous scene. Halle Berry was incredibly influential with her pixie cut, that hairstyle, and then being very glamorous on the red carpet, right, in modern times. I like this photo for a number of reasons, but we see her pixie cut, but also we see this was taken from, anyone know where this is taken from? So if I have any film historians? Yeah, that you're close, a movie?
James Bond?
James Bond, yes, exactly. This was taken from James Bond, and the person who originated it was an actress named Ursula Andress. And then along comes the remake, and they choose Halle Berry. So it's a time when black actresses and her work on the red carpet was very influential to show how celebrities can use the red carpet and have started to use the carpet to extend their brand. Beyoncé, this is her, can anyone tell me what this is from? Yeah, it's from her first album. That top was designed by her mother, Tina Knowles, a stylist and designer. So let me ask you something before we comment on this. Who do you think is more influential, Rihanna or Beyoncé? So let me see the team Beyoncé as more influential. I'm not saying who's a bigger fan, but more influential style. Okay, Beyoncé. Pardon me? In what aspect? Just generally, is it fair to ask who do you think is more influential in style? Is that enough? Okay, all right, so we're gonna do, who says Beyoncé? Okay. Who do we think is more influential in style? Who says Rihanna? Okay, all right, interesting. All right, we'll talk about that a bit more in our Q&A portion. One of the things about this photo that I like is it illustrates how black men tend to have pushed the barriers of fashion for all of fashion. So for example, being very free, open, and wearing accessories which heretofore we more associated with women. However, like I'd wear that fabulous necklace. However, what we find is that black men help to push the gender boundaries. A great photo of Miley Cyrus, speaking of pushing those boundaries, with her grills and hip hop signifying. The Prince Holland cloth, which actually a lot of it comes from Holland. Holland cloth, Dutch cloth, as we know, has become so popular. The cultural aspects of it are deeply steeped in Africa, and we've all been, this is like a huge influence right now, from Prada to Gucci, to our Brooklyn neighborhood designers. These prints have just become incredibly influential. And Oprah's here because Oprah, with her powerful platform, was able to set fashion trends, right? Whatever she decided was a favorite or she put on her television show at the time became very successful. Talk about break the internet, I guess before. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the How to Slay. So I just thought I'd share with you 5 things you can do with How to Slay besides read it. It's a very good investment. You can curl up with your How to Slay and have some hot cocoa, especially now that it's getting cold. It's a relaxation tool. You can put it on your coffee table to decorate your home, your dorm room, whatever your home is these days. You can use it to practice better posture, which my mother was a big proponent of. Everyone know how to do that?
Put it on your head.
Pardon?
Put it on your head.
Yeah, put it on your head, right? And you just like walk very carefully, and it helps improve your posture. Tammy would tell you if you're slumping, you're not looking your best success. Use it as a birthday or holiday gift for all your fashion lover friends. And tell them why they slay. Oh, I almost forgot this one. Most important of all, you can use it to appear more erudite than you really are. But I know everyone in this room is very, very smart, so. So here's how you do it. You say you're reading it. God, this is so interesting. Like, oh my God. But you're really just looking at the pictures. It's fine. All right. So that's our part one. And we're going to move into part two, which is about career enhancement and you. So let me start with when I was doing show week, I went to visit Diane von Furstenberg, and we were chatting, and she said, so, what are you doing, Constance? And I said, well, I'm spending a lot of time right now working on my book, making sure I'm sharing it with all the people that I can. That's like really important to me. And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, that's great. So I said, Diane, you know that you're an important part of this book. She's like, really? I said, yes. Do you remember I came here about 10 years ago? We were sitting down by the reflecting pool, and I told you I had this idea and I wanted to get your feedback, get your opinion. And Diane von Furstenberg she's A, a really generous person, and B, she's an incredible marketer, right? You can see that, right? When you look at her brand, see how she's marketed it. And so I thought I'd get some feedback from her. So I said, think about this book. And she's like, oh, yes, it's a great idea, Constance. You know what you should do? You should do that book, and you should call it Black Glamour. So I was like, great, that's a great name. And to tell you the truth, 10 years later, when I was working with my editor and with the publishing company, we came up with a list of names, and one of them was Black Glamour, and we had about 5 or 6 that we narrowed it down to, and we said, in the end, obviously, it was How to Slay. So I say to Diane, like, yes, like you said, Black Glamour, you said, go and get this book on every celebrity's table. And then she says, in September, she said, so I'm telling her this story. She said, oh, so you didn't listen. So I said, well, no, Diane, I did listen. I just gave the book a different name. So the reason I think it's important to tell the story is take initiative. I took initiative 10 years ago and said to Diane von Furstenberg, a obviously very famous woman and certainly one of the most successful designers, and you wouldn't necessarily think about asking her necessarily about a book that you're doing. But I did take the initiative to get her opinion, get her feedback. And not only was it very inspirational, helpful, but you know what? As a matter of fact, and you're the first people I'm going to tell this to, I don't know if it's going to happen, but as a matter of fact, when I saw her in September and I was telling her the story, she said to me, oh, I'm going to take this book and send it out as a gift to celebrities for Christmas, for this upcoming Christmas. And it all goes to show, when you take the initiative, good things happen. When you sit back and wait for something to happen for you, you know what's going to happen for you most of the time? Nothing, right? So taking the initiative, when you are at your best, you're feeling your most energetic, you're feeling your most powerful, you take the initiative to make things go forward. Most importantly, when you are feeling down, when you're feeling discouraged, when you're feeling like, you know what. Taking the initiative is a great way to work your way out of that. Okay? Do something. Don't do nothing. Do something. And I want to say that that is so, so important. It's one of the most important, I'd say maybe the top 3 things that I will tell you this morning and share with you, because it can be really hard to be down in the dumps and to move forward, right? You start the pile-on, you start with the, and science has shown it is a vicious cycle. Because the more you tell yourself, I can't do this, that's not going to work, I'm not going to make it happen, is the more likely that will be true. So I really want to urge you to take initiative. Make that text go. You know what? So what the F if the person doesn't do what you want them to do, right? It's okay, but take that first step. Be your own advocate. What does that mean, be your own advocate? Show up for yourself. If you're not telling me by what you're doing that you believe in yourself, it makes it that much harder for me to understand and to engage and to help you. So be your own advocate. Talk about what you want. Talk about what you can bring to the table. If you find that difficult in any given particular moment, ask a question. Questions are always good, okay? Do your research and be resourceful. I think you all know a bit about that, right? What that means. It's kind of like 101 of career counseling, career guidance. But I will say, let me add just one thing to that point. When you are going on an interview for your internships, when you're leaving school and you're looking for your first job, when you already have your first job and you're going forward, I've been in quite a few situations where the person shows up and they clearly know nothing about the company. Don't be that person. I know doesn't it sound weird to you? I'm sure to some of you it sounds like, what? Like I wouldn't do that. People do it. Don't be that person. Or as my daughter once said to me, don't be that person who wears the 5-toed shoes. Think about it. Okay, ask for feedback. You will get feedback even if you don't ask for it. Feedback, what's the other word for feedback? The C word. Criticism, right? Criticism is okay, all right? Take it in. Consider what the person is saying. Consider why the person is saying it, all right? Yes, there are going to be a few haters who are just like, yeah, like, you don't, whatever, you're not doing that right. But they're in the minority. Is there maybe a seed of truth to what the person is saying, to the criticism? Criticism is just feedback. Is it hard to take? Yes. I actually don't like criticism, but you need it. Learn to love it, and if you can't love it, learn at least to appreciate it, right? So listen to it. Think about it. Is there a seed in here? Is there something that I could use? Is there one grain of truth to this? And then take action on it. You don't have to act on criticism, but more importantly, you don't have to internalize it, right? It's not you. The criticism, by that I mean, the criticism is not you. Because the person said, you did not put that microphone in the right place, you just didn't put it in the right place. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of putting the microphone in the right place, right? And those are two very different things. Take time for yourself. This is about, I'm going to see what's next because there's something. Okay. Take time for yourself has to do with what I want you to think about when you think about take time for yourself. I want you to think about self-care, okay? I want you to think about self-awareness. I want you to think about self, the self in yourself, and think about self-care, self-awareness. Taking care of yourself is where you'll get energy from. It's where your love begins. Your love for yourself, your love for other people, your patience. It's where it begins with the self-care, the self-awareness. Why is self-awareness a part of self-care? Because self-awareness is about, what do I like? What turns me on? And I know for a lot of us, we'll sit in front of a piece of paper, or we'll sit on the chair, you lay in your bed and you go like, I don't know what I like, or I don't know what I want to do, or which is okay right now. I don't know, I don't know. It's kind of hard. Like, how do I figure this out? The first quick tip, but very important one that I want to give you is, let's break this down. What do you like? When were you happy? Was it yesterday, last year? Write these down. When did I feel really good? Think about that. Write it down. Don't get caught up in your head of like, what's the self-care? What do I like? What makes me happy? Think about, when was I, right? When was I happy? When was I smiling? When did I feel a sense of pride and satisfaction? And write those things down. And then go back to them tomorrow, go back to them next year, go back to them every moment in your life. Be focused on a goal, but open to possibilities. You know what that is. I want to skip over it because I want to build a network and maintain it. Don't let setbacks stop you. I want to go there, and I want to go back to self-care and wrap it up with that, is one of the things that will help you navigate as well, navigate your self-care, navigate your career, is at the end of the day, what I do a lot is I'll sit down and I'll go through something called the 5 best things, which I got from a psychologist, someone, I didn't invent this myself. And I'll make a list, preferably write it down. You write it in your phone, you write it pen and paper in your journal, whatever. Make a list of, what are the good things that happened to me today? You have to do 5 of them, okay? You can't just do 1, no matter how terrible you're feeling, 5 of them. And then, what is the one thing that didn't go well today? You know what? You're not going to have a thing that didn't go well every day, but many days you will. Okay, so I want to leave you with that tool. There's a guy named Harry Kramer, who I was just in a class with him, and he wrote the book called Good to Great. Anyone ever heard of it? It's a very good book. You can pick it up if you like. But one of the things, he does a sort of exercise at the end of the day too. And how he does it is he said that he says, what did I do today? What do I want to do tomorrow? Where I want to change something I did today. And then that just starts to focus you on literally activities and focusing your energy outward and helping you go back to taking care of yourself, right? And to me, there are a few other things, there are a few other points that are important to make, but I really and deliberately want to leave you with that point because it can take care of a host of success tools in your life, right? So if you're really focusing on self-care, you're really focusing on self-examination is another way to think of it. But I want you to use the tools because for some of you, it's going to be like, oh, I got this right, self-care, got it. For others of you, it's going to be, well, yeah, but how do I use that? What do I do? How do I find out what I want to do? And finally, a quick application of it is to think about, there are probably 3 sets of you in this room. One set of you know exactly what you want to do in your career, right? A second set of you, well, I don't know what I want to do, right? You don't have to raise your hand. And a third set of you are kind of, well, you know what, Constance, I kind of feel like I want to do this, but I'm not sure, right? So we have 3, all of you fit into one of those buckets. all of you can benefit from, and I highly recommend that you use this tool, right, of self-care, self-examination. At the end of the day, sit down and reflect. You only need 10 minutes to do it. If you end up spending an hour, great, but you only need 10 minutes to reflect upon it. Okay? Is that clear? All right. Thank you. I think we're going to do some Q&A. Do we have time for that? Okay. Great. Empowerment, in my view, means having the ability to make something happen. So it does go back to a part of where we started the conversation of talking about how do you move through the world and take initiative, right? So empowerment means having that ability to make something happen. In the workplace, I think it's pretty self-evident, right? So there are two areas I would point to self-empowerment as being realized in the workplace. One is you're literally doing your job, and in doing that job, you're making something happen, and you're doing it well, and you're empowered, and in doing so, you also likely will be empowering other people, because you're going to have teammates who are working with you, you're going to have a boss, you're going to have a peer, you're going to have perhaps someone who's junior to you, and in doing so, you're moving through and you're making something happen. You also have the empowerment which is more internal, right? Where you as an agent, as a human being, can make things happen. You have that belief that you can make things happen, which goes back to take initiative and be your own advocate. You have that belief where you can make things happen and you act in that way. So for me, that's what empowerment is, and that's what it is in the workplace. Your questions from you? Yes.
At one point, thank you. At what point in your career did you know or could confirm that this is what you wanted to be doing? Like when you were in your fashion career, it was kind of like that affirmation for you. What were you doing and what did it feel like?
When I was at Women's Wear Daily, I would say. And when I was at Women's Wear Daily, as I started doing my job, I would say when I was perhaps about a year into it, maybe 2, I realized that yes, that I want to fully embrace this. I want to move forward in this career. I want to be in the fashion business. I want to be in the media business. And that's when it really all came together for me.
What position was that?
I was an editor. I started off as a reporter, and then I became an associate editor. That answered it? Yes. Okay, good.
I guess writing a book is really not an easy thing because when I was 10 years old, I wanted to write a book.
Good.
So
you should. Everyone should write a book. I'll tell you why after your question.
Keeping that aside, throughout that time, just relating it to our workspace or something, writing a book makes you feel, sometimes gives you a break point or something, like you don't feel like you're accomplishing the things you want to do that day. How did you overcome that?
Oh, good question. Well, let's see. There is something called writer's block, as you may have heard, but the book was also very visual, so it wasn't just being writing. And I would say there are two tools that I use with the book, and I use it in my life generally, right, in my career as a whole, when things are like, it's stuck. I can't, I don't want to. One is I just do something. So from a writer's perspective, to illustrate it, what we say as writers is just write a sentence. Just write anything. It can be crap. It doesn't matter what it is. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Where I said, like, do something. Take initiative. Like, don't do nothing. Do something. So translate that to whatever it is you're doing, right? If you're studying, for me, if you're writing, when you talked about writing a book, it's writing. If I have a deadline, it might be a project that I'm working on. I have to do the next step. It's like, do something. Send 2 emails, call someone, do that first step. Don't be a perfectionist. too. Let me just add that, because sometimes it's being a perfectionist that stops us. Like, I'm not going to do this right. This isn't going to turn out great, and I want it to be great. Recognize, as you do your self-reflection, these things may unfold to you, but recognize when you're stopping yourself because you want it to be perfect and you're afraid it's not going to be perfect. Like, just do it. Just do something. And then I said two things, and then the second thing, second tool that I use when I'm stuck is I take a break. If it's like a big stuck, like, holy crap, I have something really big that I have to get done and it affects a lot of people, it's going to affect the chain and so on. I really like take an hour or, couple hours, and I really take a break. And I say that to say sometimes it can be you're in the office and you just walk around the block, right, and come back. But you literally like take a break to clear your mind. I just read where 15 minutes of running is like the best thing to get you focused and up. But you like shake your head. Do you run? Yeah, get you focused and up. And I don't run. The runner's high. Yeah, so see, you have the two extremes. Your colleague here runs, great. I do not run. But I can run for like 5 minutes. I can run for 5. So you're just doing something that really gets your energy up, like some kind of physical activity. And I'm a big, by the way, proponent of exercising, doing some sport or something, as to help you keep in balance, to help you take initiative, to help you stay healthy, self-care.